We're rocking and rolling this morning. Another episode of Clean Breakthrough. I'm going in blind. I don't know what we're talking about today. Cole has a clue. Lucas has the topic. Fill me in.
So this past Saturday we were over at our Step Up house and we were watching UFC, and there were a couple of alumni there, and our Step Up house manager, who's also one of our alumni, brought up the idea that I've talked to him before, that there's like a, I don't call it this, but he called it a threshold that I have for guys that go through the program and whether I think they're going to be successful or not. That's normally years in before I kind of make it. And it's obviously not perfect at all. And like for the most part, I'm as wrong as can be on whether people will stay sober or not. And the guys who I think will really, really, really do a good job, something goes wrong, and guys that are a huge pain in getting sober, which I relate to from getting sober, are the ones most of the time that get and stay sober. So it's weird how that works out. But anyways, he was bringing up this threshold. Go ahead, Cole.
Well, I was going to say, like, defining it of like, well, it's also just funny contextually thinking about him bringing that up because he has crossed this threshold, it's like a little shout out to him. But like, what would you say success is? Like the threshold for success. What are you talking about? Success in this context. How would you define it?
And this is clearly success in recovery.
In recovery, yeah.
Okay.
And it's not even to do with success. I mean, I think success comes from this because I think recovery comes from this. But the biggest like turning point that I could ever think of, and we probably talked about it before on this podcast, but not specifically in this like metric way, but is when you could pretty much fully get away with using or drinking, at least like for the foreseeable future, and you have the thought to do it, and you think about all the people like, okay, well, I'm not in a sober living anymore, so they couldn't test me, and my job wouldn't know because I can keep it from them for long enough, and my girlfriend wouldn't know, and my parents are a state away or a couple hours away. I don't live with them anymore, and Lucas and Cole aren't up my butt anymore, so they're not going to find out. Like when you can like pretty rationally justify, at least for the short term, that like I could get away with this. And then you have the thought, but that you would know, like, but I would know that I did it. And I don't want to do that. And I think most people in recovery, I think all people in recovery, not most people, come to that point. It's just when do they come to it? And some of those like external things have to be lifted for them to come to it. Because like as long as you are being drug tested, that'll be the first thought that comes in of like, but I'm getting drug tested and I'm going to get caught tomorrow, so I'm not even going to do it. But you're kind of not doing it for the drug test. Whether you know it or not, you could still be super bought in, but it's like you just got to kind of remove these variables of like parents, coaches, sober living, drug test. I'm going to see my sponsor tomorrow, like that kind of stuff. Because guys, at least like in our program, and I think in recovery, you get like far enough away from all that you're like, I can just kind of drift away from AA. And then my sponsor's not really a problem anymore. And I won't see Lucas there. And the other guys in the meeting that I go to aren't going to be there. And I'm out of the sober living, so I'm not getting tested. And I don't have to go over to UFC night at the Step Up house and see Cole and Lucas and remain close with them at all. So you can kind of slowly drift away in these ways. And then there's also like hard spots where you pass it. But that's kind of my threshold. It's like I wait and see a guy kind of get to a point where they fully could. They don't have to talk to me. They don't have to talk to Cole. They don't have to talk to their sponsor. They don't have to go to their Smash May meeting. They're not getting drug tested. They could get a different job that doesn't have to know that they're in recovery, and they could just go drink casually around people. Like they could fully set up their life to be back into drinking or using and think they could get away with it. And they choose not to.
How do you know when that is like happening with a human being? Like, is it like a gut thing, or is it when you actually know for a fact that they are choosing to engage with their recovery structures, their recovery routines out of choice, as opposed to like having to do it? Is that when you know it?
Like a big indicator is that they're still going to meetings and still talk to their sponsor and maybe still talk to you or talk to me. It doesn't have to be us specifically. They still talk to Scott. They still talk to other guys in the program. Like they're just like connected in some way, because if I was going to relapse, that'd be the first thing I'd disconnect. I'm not talking to Cole. I'm not talking to Lucas. If I'm doing therapy with Cole afterwards, I'm going to kind of start drifting away from that and say, well, maybe I just call you if I need you. Because that's going to like set the stage. Now, some people do that, I think, more intentionally, and some people less intentionally. But I think that's kind of like the first, especially like early on, like you just got out of sober living, and conveniently, that's the moment when you kind of stop talking to your sponsor, stop going to meetings, don't reach out to anyone. And again, it doesn't have to be specifically us, but just like, and I don't know all these guys' lives once they leave, but most of the time I know somebody who knows them who's like, oh yeah, man, I see him every week. Or I start hearing from everybody like, dude, I haven't seen that guy in forever. And I like to tell myself for a while, like, oh, maybe they just switched up. They're going to different meetings. They're just around different people. But eventually you kind of get it confirmed that it's like, yeah, I think they're just kind of done with all that.
Yeah, and if they're doing well, it doesn't really matter where they go. If they're doing well, you hear about it. And I'm thinking of a specific case years ago where a guy came to us at Greenville, South Carolina, participated in the sober living and clinical work, and then he moved from our program all the way out to Lubbock, Texas, because he wanted to go to Texas Tech. They had an awesome collegiate recovery program there. But dude, he wanted to like call us and let us know how he was doing, and he found a mentor there or sponsor there, or that he was, he just wanted to share those success stories with us. So I feel like it's inevitable, even if they move far, far away, if they're continuing that lifestyle of recovery, they want to talk to the people, the community that helped get them there. And which goes back to what I tell families when families are like, we live in Mississippi, we're not sure about sending our son to Greenville, South Carolina. I tell them straight up, like, hey, if your son comes here and does well in recovery, he probably doesn't want to leave. Like, he's going to build a support network, unless there's something very specific that he's wanting to go do, like the case that was like, I'm going to Lubbock, Texas to be in this collegiate recovery program. But if it's not a very specific thing, most people who are serious about the recovery want to stay where their recovery network is.
Yeah, certainly short term, which is what we put for, is like, hey, if you stayed here for a year to get sober and you built all this base under you that took a year to build it, why on like magically the 366th day would you say, well, I've technically graduated sober living, so I guess I'll just walk away from all this? It just feels kind of knee jerk, rather than like, all right, man, just like stick around for like 3 months, 6 months, a year, kind of continue to have that base under you, and then figure out in a non-impulsive way, like, where do you want to go and what do you want to do? Because often those guys that are straight back, it's like always like their hometown, to go back to the same job, to the same people, to the same stuff, where you're like, man, who could have ever guessed that? Rather than something brand new where they're like, dude, I've been thinking for like months and I've been talking to a lot of places, but like, I think I want to go to Alaska to be an offshore fisherman up there. I just think that'd be really cool. I figured out the money. I figured out meetings, like whatever I'm going to do to transition, and I'm just going to do it. Like, that kind of stuff hits me different than, all right, I graduated, I'm going back home. It's like kind of predictable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like there's, for me, like where I get confidence is I've seen people, they are progressing with like doing things that are hard, and doing things not because they have to, because they want to, or they know they need it, as opposed to doing it because they're told to do things. And I mean, I would say, I don't know. I mean, I don't think every guy who's like come through our program who's still sober today necessarily still involved with, real rigid like therapy structure or recovery meetings. I don't know that for sure. But I do think they really honed in that structure. They honed the ability to, like, I do not have to always just go to instant gratification and doing the easy thing. I have to do the hard things. I have to like figure out how to take care of myself. And when you start to like hear and see that, and you're having less of those conversations about like just the basic stuff of like, hey, did you budget for your grocery list? Did you make the appointments you said you were going to make? Have you taken care of your space? Like, do you make your bed, or do you like clean up your room? Do you, if people are around, do you come and like hang out in the living areas of like the sober living you're in? Like when you see that, it starts to really put together this body of evidence in your mind of like, this is somebody who's getting it. Now that doesn't mean they're necessarily going to stay in the area. Doesn't mean they're necessarily going to like, you know, become a sponsor someday or whatever the case is. But you're seeing this like person come back online, and they're not just simply just trying to like do what they have to do and get through. You know, like that mindset is shifting. So you can feel like it. I feel like there is like it becomes like almost like this gut, like intuition thing, but it's based in like actual evidence that you're gathering over time. You know, does that make sense?
Yeah. I think, and I would say too that like I don't try to speculate too much on this stuff, and I focus more on the guys that if I'm going to guess anything, that like they're doing well, rather than like who's not doing well. Like that's not something I want to fixate or speculate too much on. But I think it's just kind of the absence of some people, and then so many times that being confirmed by a phone call from their mom or something a year later that's like, oh, they're doing really poorly again, or whatever, where it's like, well, that kind of makes sense. Like they graduated the program and then just no one heard or saw them ever again. And they like live in Greenville, and like no one saw them at a meeting. Everyone's just kind of like, what happened to that guy? So not that it has to be that way, but it doesn't really surprise me when we get that call later on that they're in trouble again, things aren't going well, whatever. Versus like the other side is like, yeah, I'd go get lunch with them. I could call them and they'd probably answer. If I wanted to get lunch, they'd probably go get lunch. And in that lunch, I would feel all of those principles kind of working through pretty effortlessly, of like how they handle their job, what they're thinking about family, where their friends are at, even if that's paired with like, yeah, dude, but I haven't been to a meeting in like, God, probably 4 years now. And I haven't had a sponsor in years, but like everything else, you can feel that like the principles of recovery are working in their life. Cause there's one specific guy who is probably the first couple of years we're open, that I think of, and I get lunch. I mean, sometimes as much as like once a month with him, and other times maybe go 6-9 months, even like a year sometimes without seeing him. But then every time I do see him, it's like, it's a big relief to me, because I always wonder about guys when I don't talk to them for a while and I get lunch with them. I'm like, oh, thank God. Yeah, he's still same guy, doing well, doing his thing. And it's just like set in at that point. Like it's going to take a lot for that to, the guy I'm thinking of, it would just be crazy if he was like, and out of nowhere, I just decided I'm going to start drinking again. You know, you're like, that would blow my mind at this point.
They're the threshold has been crossed there of like, when we're talking, I'm not so worried about like, are they sober? Are they okay? It's more of like human things. Like, what do you have going on? What are you up to? You know, and like, you can hear like the consistency of values, their integrity, like all that kind of stuff. Their morality is there. And it's not just like crisis mode where you're literally like wondering, are you still like, okay? You know, like, I think that's kind of what you're describing there. And you're having more like human to human interaction. Something else I want to note too, though, is I do think it is like somewhat traumatic being like a substance abuse, like therapist or recovery coach or sober living manager, like, because there is so much heartbreak, and there is so much like, there are so many of those stories of somebody coming in kind of like knowing like what to say, and then suddenly relapsing, or just saying all the right things to just get through it. And you just kind of know you're not getting the full truth, but no one's saying it. They can make like you can have like this pessimistic like viewpoint. Like, if you don't hear someone, then you assume the worst. Right. And like, that is like part of the work of like trying to help people struggling with addiction to not always fall into that like kind of like pessimistic, negative place where if I haven't heard from them, that means they relapse. You know, and I think that's like a really easy thing to fall into, because you do get your heart broken so many times. So you like try to prepare for it and just like assume if I don't see him at a meeting, or if I don't hear from him, then something bad's happened. And we have to remember that there are plenty of cases of guys that have, you know, either live here or moved on, and we hear it through the grapevine or hear from them that like their life is in a much better place. Their time with us, while they maybe don't stay plugged in, it's like some of the alumni we were talking to the other night at the UFC fight. They don't maybe stay plugged in like that, but that doesn't mean they've like haven't launched into much better things. I just think that's like a really important thing to consider.
For sure. Yeah, or I just hear it from other people that they're
Yeah.
like, hey, I had lunch with him, and dude, he seemed on top of it, great, sharp, everything was awesome. Like it all checked out. Again, even if 12-step programming or therapy wasn't a part of that, because I'm not saying that has to be. I'm just saying that's normally a decent sign when you see someone like 5 years later and they're like, I still go to my home group every week. I meet with my sponsor every month. I'm in this service position. I'm sponsoring these guys, whatever. You're like, that's probably a decent sign.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, David. I've seen you smirking.
David's got some smirks. What you got, Dave?
No, I don't have smirks. I was thinking.
You do have smirks.
It was an inside joke smirk. It was Lucas thinks I fell back below the threshold.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, we just don't know with you. We don't know.
But no. So I wanted to chime in and take it back to a personal story. And I know we've talked about this previously on a podcast, but it's been a long time and maybe people didn't see that episode, and here's their chance to see it again. But Lucas, when do you think you crossed the threshold? How far into your recovery journey? What had to happen for you?
In all of treatment, I was waiting to be done. In the beginning of sober living, I was waiting to be done. So it's probably around
90 days, right? Treatment
was 76 days. Who's counting? And
76 days and 14 hours.
I think sober living was supposed to be like 6 months, but I did 4 months. And I want to say it was probably about halfway in that I had a very passive version where I was like, I'm already here. I'm already doing it. Like, I might as well just be sober, like for the foreseeable future. Kind of bit into that idea. I think someone said it to me of like, you can always go back, like it's not going anywhere. You can go back to Charleston, find a heroin dealer, go back to your thing. Like that's not going to be leaving the earth. You're not going to be missing out anytime soon. So it was like passive at first. And then I would say kind of the moment that I talk about with people, and that's what it's informed by, is I was maybe, like 10 or 11 months. And it was like fresh out of any kind of sober living. I was no longer being drug tested. My parents were a state away. My friends wouldn't know. My work wouldn't know. And I was at a grocery store and I passed by the beer aisle. And instead of just walking past it, I decided to go down it and just look at the beers to be like, well, let's see if there's anything new. Just crazy, dude. I'm just like, well, and what the prices are and just kind of get an idea. And of course, I end up stopped in front of some where I'm just like, man, maybe it like I fully thought I was like, I could. Nobody would know. And then for the first time in my life, I thought that, but I would know. And I don't want to do that. And so I left the beer aisle and I went home. And that just felt like a big moment in my recovery. Whatever like dumb stuff I was doing, because like at the same time had just moved in with a like early recovery girlfriend that was like in the women's version of my sober living. And I don't say like anything bad about her, just that's like not smart in general to date in the first year, I feel like. And I was still doing a lot of dumb stuff, but it was like something had bought in enough that when I finally thought like, okay, I could fully get away with this, now's my opportunity, I didn't want to do it for me instead of just some consequence or being in trouble or letting someone down.
Yeah. Talking on the point of like, but I would know. I feel like nowadays my best reminder of that is when I have a dream that's a return to use dream or relapse dream.
Return to use dream.
I've never had more anxiety in my life than waking up after having a dream of like I just smoked weed or did some Oxycontin. I'm like freaking out. And that's the reminder of like, but you would know.
Those are always perfect because they seem to be, for whatever reason, like in my life kind of today, rather than just some like random, like, oh, it's just Lucas some point in history doing drugs with some random people I've never seen before. Like I kind of have had those in the past, but normally mine today, which aren't often, but every now and again, are like very specific of like, no, this is Lucas, like helping run GT, this many years sober, member of his home group.
Just
It's-
buckled his son in the car seat.
Yeah, it's like
down the
that,
driveway.
it's that guy relapsing.
Yeah.
And then I feel all of the shame and the guilt and the bad feelings, thinking about like, God, I got to tell David and Cole, and Scott's going to know. And I got to tell all like the guys in the program, and then their parents, and my wife, and my parents, and my sibling. You know, like I start going through all that, and I'm just like, it's just the worst feeling in the world. And so it's just this little snapshot of just like, you're not going to feel good after you use. That's how you're going to feel, which is really, really, really bad. So it's like just every once in a while, I need just a little reminder of like, you think shit's sweet, but it's not.
God, that'd be an awful conversation. Be a brutal conversation. Oh,
Well, and this goes to like a bigger point with guys that we say is like, the reason it would be so brutal is because like I would have to go to y'all and you'd be like, why did you give up like all of this? Like what did you end up doing exactly? And it's like, oh, I had 3 beers at a cookout when I wanted to fit in. Or like I was in a beer aisle at the Piggly Wiggly and I just thought maybe this time would be different. You know, like I'm just like, and I traded my whole life away as I know it for that. And not that you can't build back from a relapse. And I don't mean to sound like life's over and stuff, but that would just dramatically change my life.
who do you think would be tougher on you, David or me? If in this scenario, you have to tell us that you had a return to use, as Davis.
Bro, I was trying to be politically correct here.
Hello, yeah, at a return to Ustream. People say, what the fuck is that?
Be tougher on you. I think I know who would be tougher on you.
I wouldn't imagine either of y'all would be tough on me, honestly.
I think it'd be David. I think David would be tougher.
All I can think of is that the meme that's going around now of the guy that's like straight to jail.
Yeah.
Straight to jail.
I think I think Dave would be tougher on you. I think he'd be the tougher one.
It's probably like, I mean, it is projection, but I wouldn't think either of y'all would be tough just because whenever I have somebody like, we have like an alumni that called me like a month ago and he's been like in and out since leaving the program and on a relapse and just coming back in. And it's like the last thing on earth when he tells me like, yeah, man, I just got out of treatment again. The last thing I'm going to be like is, what the hell, man? What were you thinking? Like, I'm just like, so what do you do today? Like, you go into a meeting, get who you got as a sponsor, like you reconnecting with people, you got a therapist. Like, I just want to focus on like the positive and moving forward. So I kind of expect that from other people that have been around in it, not as like a deflection of accountability, but that's just kind of what my mind would go to of like, that's how that conversation would go, that it'd be more supportive of like, well, what can we do to help?
Yeah. And I want to be clear. I think David would be very supportive. I just think he'd also like have some hard truths, you know, and I think it's one of those things that David also being sober for a long time, like sometimes I think he can speak to it a lot more personally in that moment of like, hey, this is where you messed up. This is where you got to get back on it. You know what I mean? Whereas for me, and then also how I've been trained in my experience of being a therapist with people who are, you know, have substance abuse problems, like very like aware of like shame and try to like be very, very cognizant of that. That's why I think David would be like tougher, but I don't think tough in a bad way and not in an unloving way or anything like that.
He would.
I would be. I'm not gonna lie. I think honestly, my first emotion would be anger. For sure. I'd be like,
yeah,
there'd be some anger there, I think. And then I think I could quickly like move past that into like a supportive place. But
yeah.
But I would only think you would fill in gaps that I would leave open. So like if I was like, but anyways, I'm gonna go drop by the house and just like pretend like none of this happened. Like I feel like that's where you'd be like, no, brother, that's done. And if I was like, and I'm gonna go call a mom and do a quick like phone call, you'd be like, no, dude, you're not talking to parents anymore. You just did drugs yesterday. But I feel like I would be like, obviously, I am like out of GT. in any kind of functional role, because like how the hell could I not be? So I feel like if I was kind of cavalier or just like flippant about it, I think David would jump in to be like, this is the reality. But again, like I know what all that would mean. Anyways, I don't like that we're talking so much about me relapsing.
gel.
Because I am not, I don't think about that. I don't want that. I have an awesome life. And that was the point I was making, is that like these guys
Let's
have to
talk
have
more
a
about
life.
this.
These guys, they have to have a life that like weighs out, that like weighs more than the relapse, you know, to where it's like, all right, like I would lose everything in my life. And they're like, what, dude, my job at Harris Teeter that I hate, my moped from losing my license, and like no friends and being miserable all the time. Like that's what I'd be trading in. No problem.
Yeah.
And like, that's just very different for me today, that it's like, oh, like my wife, my 2 kids, my 1 kid on the way, my parents, my relationship with them, all of like my like business and professional life, my friends, my home group, my sponsor, like it would just go through so many things that have been built on top of my sobriety that when I pull that sobriety out from underneath would topple. Not that they couldn't be rebuilt back together, but they would topple in the short term. And I'm just like, that's insane for like 3 drinks or a shot of heroin or a hit of crack or whatever. But not everyone's life is like that. And it takes time to get there. And even within like the first year, I was more there of like, oh, I'd like really be giving up some stuff that would matter to me. But in the first 30 days, I'm like, nothing. Hit a heroin or whatever sounds way better than wilderness treatment.
Yeah, and you're using so much like logic too. Like it's very clear, like pros and cons. You're talking it out right now. Like I think it's just harder for people to do that early in recovery. That their brains just aren't functioning normal. You know, like
they haven't had time to like build up the positives.
Yeah,
in recovery. I go back to the saying that like you always hear, I didn't get sober to be miserable. And that's what it's all about. It's like getting to a place in your recovery journey where you feel so good about it and you've built up so many positive things, like Lucas was just mentioning, that it would kill you to lose it.
For sure. So some of our listeners may be wondering, like, well, how do you develop this, like, this ability to see the threshold or to like know it in your heart that this person seems to be really stable? I have broken it down into an easy way to remember it. It's the 3 I's. So let's see if this hits. And if it hits, we can clip it for Instagram. So there you go, David. You're welcome. All right. So the 3 I's. One is, first I is intrinsic, like internal motivation. So they are intrinsically motivated to go do the things. They're not going to going about their life and doing their recovery thing because they have to. They're doing it because they know they need it, and they're doing it for an internal reason, not because somebody is telling them to do it. So there's the first clue right there. Second one is integrity. Like you can see and feel the values that this person has, and they are like living within them. And these are values that maybe you haven't seen since they were younger, like before their use, or they're like new ones that have come up, like being dependable, being consistent, having integrity. But like there's like a steadfastness with integrity of like their behaviors match up with their beliefs, and they're like in lockstep together. And then the last one, this is when I tell parents a lot, is they're inquisitive. They ask about other people. They want to know what you're up to. They want to know what's going on back home with grandma, or how have you been? There's a genuine like curiosity about other people. So that's another like really big one too. So I think intrinsic, integrity, and inquisitive are 3 the handy way to like know what you're looking for.
You heard it here first, people. You might have heard of Triple H, but have you ever heard of Triple I?
There you go. Exactly. So what do you guys think? How does that land? And trying to like be like concise with thinking about the threshold and feeling confident in somebody's recovery.
Would you chat GPT this, bro?
Dude, it just came up in my head while we were sitting here. I was sitting here listening. I wrote it on my sticky.
Yeah, that's really good. I love it.
Yeah, I agree. All that stuff sounds great. And that just should be a person who's like bought into recovery principles, especially like they're bought in for themselves. They act with integrity, like they have like recovery values that you can see from the outside looking in. And also, I feel like just kind of one of those is that like connection with others.
Yes.
and not being so like just take and more give in that. And when I think about any person like that, like all these like alumni and guys I'm thinking of, they're all that. Like if I don't call them in a while, they would call me or might text me. Or at least when I did call them, they would like answer, pretty quickly and get right back to me. And again, I'm just a placeholder for just somebody in their life that they would talk to and care about. And like you said, ask questions, which is always really cool when you have guys. Cause like, not that I'm like so buttoned up, but when they're in the house, it's like, I'm not getting into like my struggles and my troubles and, that kind of stuff. You just have a little bit of a wall up of like what's appropriate.
Yep.
And I always like when a guy leaves and then they come back for like a UFC night and you can kind of take a stroll down memory lane of just like, like I always tell our step up house manager, which this should be encouraging to people, that I was like, dude, you were probably the worst looking guy on paper that we have ever admitted in the GT.
You're like, true. It really is true.
Yeah. Like just,
I didn't want it. To give a little backstory, I did not want him coming straight in.
No,
because I was like, this guy, he needs to stabilize somewhere else before he come back in. And I was like, I just know this is going to crash out like super quick.
Yeah. Like it looked really, really, really bad. Of just, not like it'd be inappropriate, but we were just like, dude, no, like this guy, we'd be stretching a couple things to like justify letting him in and it being worth it. And he's about to be 5 years old.
Really, we have him on we should have him on in an interview. That's what we need to do.
Keep asking him, and he's on the edge, dude.
Yeah,
we need to get him in here. Why? What's the reason? We'll talk.
The positive attention is slowly outweighing the potential shame.
Dude, he should definitely come on here for sure.
Speaking of that guy, like I had a close friend in recovery who was really close friends with him, with our step up house manager, who was really going to bat for him. And I think that's what pushed it over of like, okay, well, this is a favor, a family friend, family favor. Let's do it. Let's take him in and look at him now.
Oh, killing it, man. And like those 3 Ives to a T.
For sure.
Yeah. Like you just know it when you're around him. Like, and I've just also seen him. It's really cool to watch guys grow in recovery. Because like at year 1, I wasn't worried about him relapsing, but there's still like a lot of life problems in year 1. I feel like for anyone, and year 2 and year 3. And I just consistently seeing him like put in the work, adjust, be humble, switch up on things, despite like, oh, I'm 3 years sober. It's like, yeah, but like this area of your life is kind of a mess. Like, what are you going to do? Like, it's time to finally look at this thing. And then him looking at it, fixing it, and just seeing him kind of like level up each year. It's just a really, really cool thing to get to watch from the outside looking in.
I really enjoyed the other night. One of our alumni who I worked with a lot while he was in the program. And I hadn't seen him in a while. And so getting to hang out with him, it was really cool seeing like the self-confidence and how much it's grown. I was like, this is fascinating to see, because like I said, I saw this guy multiple times a week, every week for months. And then it's been a while since I've seen him. And then you can just tell there was just like an energy that was just different and very like affectionate, like, and so he's doing the inquisitive, like the connection thing, funny, but there was just self-confidence, like that he could take some like, some kidding or snark coming at him. There wasn't this like, like I'm gonna buck up or anything. I mean, it was just super cool and really just it was very gratifying and I think humbling for me to get to experience the other night. It was I'm really treasuring it because we saw him go through some really rough times. So
and that's probably the biggest benefit of like guys staying connected to us is selfishly, it's just I just get to see it.
Yeah.
I want to see it for everybody. For anybody that we work with or anybody we don't work with, people that I see come into meetings like really rough and in the beginning and then see them grow. Like it's just always a really, really cool thing to see. And then we just have like a little portal into, 10 to 20 guys a year who have a shot at doing that. So like as many of them as I can stay connected with and get to see it all on that journey. Selfish for me, it just feels really positive. And so much of it, like year 2, year 3, year 4, like has nothing to do with GT at that point. It's like all just decisions and values and motivations that they have within them. And again, that they could totally not. They're like, yeah, I don't want to work on relationships or a new job or like being happy, sober, or hobbies or any of that stuff. Like, because I don't have to. So I'm not going to. Come on. Heart, thumb up, heart, thumb up, heart.
Preach, brother.
So it's just really, really cool to see. But for some of these guys, we don't get to see it, and somebody else does because they moved somewhere, or we just didn't connect super well, and maybe they connected with someone else that they become, friends with or want to talk to or whatever, and that's all good too.
I mean, I would say most of them. I mean, most of them, like and this is the point of the whole thing. Their friends and families get the best version of them. We get them like at a pretty rough time. Obviously they're not actively using well with us, but they're trying to figure out how to be a human being again. Pretty brutal. But the point is to go through all this. So then like we kind of put them back out into the world and to their people, and like they're a much better version of themselves. Like that's the whole point of this thing. But I agree, like it is really nice when you still get to have those connections and helps you remind you of like the why behind the work, which sadly is like easy to forget or you just get burnt out on, because the grief can be really hard. But yeah, I thought that was super, super fun the other night, getting to spend some time with a few alumni and hang out.
Well, and you don't always get wins in this line of work, this world. It's like it can feel very defeating at times where you're just like, nobody's getting it, everybody's miserable, everybody wants to leave, and they're like, this place sucks, I want out of here, you're ruining my life, you're stealing my TrueLink money, like whatever, like just all these things where you're just like, God, dude, why do I even do this? And so it's like, I just got to have some of those connections with guys that are 2, 3, 4 years down the road to be like, oh, this is why, like, because every guy has a shot at that. They have a shot at being like those guys that we just saw at UFC night that were like happy, confident, secure in their recovery, getting awesome stuff happening to them in life, just like thing after thing because of how they're behaving in the world and how they show up. And you're like, that's why we do this, so that guys have a shot at that. Not so that they hate us for 6 months, but you got to like endure the hate for 6 months to kind of just get through to that, like the hard part, which I did the same thing, so I try not to never ever take it personally, but I did it to people.
Well, that's like that's a very sacred part of doing it's like long-term recovery work is you get to be with them in the wins and the losses. Case in point, like, I mean, you two have known each other for years. I mean, like when Lucas, when you were very early in recovery, and David like knew you when you were like making decisions, like I'm gonna live with my early recovery girlfriend.
Oh,
and now
decisions than that.
For sure. And then like see him now, like they still have that relationship, and it's like, yeah, I've run a business for 10 years together. Watch you become like a husband, a dad, all that kind of stuff. Like getting to see that in your friend is like really special. And it makes me think about like one of the guys we saw the other night, like have sat with him like post relapse in this office. And like, man, we got to call your mom. Like we got to call your mom and dad and let them know. And like to have that conversation and to now see like over 2 years sober now, like to see like where he is. I don't know. It's just super cool, man. It's just really, really cool.
Yeah.
Very special.
It's also reaffirming of just like, people can get it, because that guy was like very like broken, and yeah. I'm sure a lot of people would look at him and be like, dude, he's just done. Like, just let him go drink hand sanitizer in a 1-bedroom apartment by himself and just kind of to the end, and I'm just glad that like for the people who have parents or family that like believe in their child, obviously, when like kind of all the professionals don't. And they're just like, no, please give my son another chance. Like, I know he can get this because they've seen that before. And I feel like moms have a really good ability for that, of like kind of being able to see their child for what they can be rather than what they are, and motivating them. And so, I don't know. I'm just really grateful for all of it because it's a cool thing to see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This felt way too, I don't know. This whole thing felt kind of gross to me. I feel like I need some humility in my life.
What?
Well, you didn't like any of this? You know, like, all right, David, how about you then? We'll put it back on David. David, you have had a return to use. Who would be tougher on you out of me or Lucas?
Lucas, for sure.
Oh, for sure, dude.
For sure.
he keeps that list ready. Well, this is what you didn't do
Lucas
right.
would be like, I knew this was going to happen. I haven't seen you in schmay and schmear.
Yes, for sure.
That's the thing, dude. It's like it's all good to like leave kind of the recovery world like personally and just like do it on your own, but know that you are gonna hear about that shit. Relapse. So like don't relapse if you're gonna be like, oh, I don't need that, whatever. Because God, you just reconfirm the whole thing when people are like, yeah, I mean, I guess it started when I walked away from Shmay and 12 step and stopped talking to a sponsor and whatever, where I'm just like, man, I want to believe in you. Do not mess this up, because that's going to be the first thing I'm going to say, dude. Is that like, well, you did this and you did that.
That's his higher power, man. It's higher power. It's not wanting to hear it from you. So it's just like that keeps me sober. I'd have to hear it from Lucas. Nah, I'm not going to drink today. I'm not going to use today.
Dude, that's like half the reason most of the guys in our program don't drink.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. They don't have that combo.
Yeah, nobody wants to have that combo. And that's also why people do it in secret and they try to get away with it, or they sneak out saying like, no, it's not that I'm using and drinking. I need to do me, man.
Yep.
To get back to home.
Yep. They don't have that conversation. You have to justify it.
No, it sucks. And I get all this from the other side too.
Yep.
From their side.
All right. So intrinsic, integrity, and inquisitive. That's what you're looking for.
Clip
you know, and let it. I would say one more thing. Like, you cannot like create that necessarily in somebody else. You have to like, it has to occur within them. So you can talk all day long about somebody having integrity, or hey, why don't you ever ask me about me? But man, it's one of those things, like, it just has to happen when it's going to happen. You know?
Yeah. And for the humble part is just that, like, we don't know. We don't have a crystal ball. We cannot guess with perfect accuracy, but we do have probably a better idea than the average person, just being we've worked with so many people to see so many signs that are just like reconfirmed of like, you see this and then you see the relapse, and you see this and you see the relapse, you see this, you see the relapse. You start to kind of get conditioned to where like, all right, that's like decent evidence that if you see this, a relapse may be coming. Or if you see this, like a great sober life may be coming. And so there's just kind of cues that you learn, but they're not perfect. And that, you know, crazy stuff happens. And again, some of the toughest guys I've ever worked with are the ones with the like best long-term recovery. And sometimes the best guys in the first 3 months are the ones that secretly use and drink and feel like out of nowhere, you're like, what? You're like my guy, dude. You do everything. You go to meetings, you talk to your sponsor, you know, you do all the stuff. Like, and they're like, yeah, it was all bullshit, dude. I'm sorry. I just kind of I like did it so you would think all that and then not think that I would do it so I could get away with it. And I get both sides of that. So just to say that we don't always get it right or always know, but I always hope for the best and the guys will make it. And girls.
And girls.
Shout out to my sober ladies.
What else we got, Dave? What else we got today? That was our
I think
that
that's
was our topic.
Y'all want to wrap it up there?
Yeah, that's good.
That's fine with me.
Cool.
Sounds good.
All right. Until next time.